The planet Virelia shivered under an invisible enemy. Its people, tall and slender with translucent skin that reflected the pale sunlight of their twin suns, moved through their cities with quiet fear. A deadly plague had spread through their colonies faster than anyone could track. Scientists worked tirelessly, but their medicine could not keep up with the sickness. Council chambers were filled with heated debates. Leaders spoke of possible aid from neighboring planets, hoping for healers, doctors, and supplies. Anything that could save their citizens. When the distress call was sent, the Virelians did not expect anything extraordinary. Surely they thought the neighboring worlds would send medical teams, small ships carrying biologists and doctors, perhaps some advanced healing devices. That would be enough to curb the plague. Yet what arrived shocked them beyond imagination. Across the dark expanse of space, human warships appeared on the horizon. Massive hulls gleaming against the stars, bristling with weapons that could obliterate mountains and carve through atmospheres. Smaller support craft buzzed around them like aggressive insects. The Virelian Council watched the approach from their orbital station, jaws practically dropping. This was not a medical fleet. This was a fleet designed for war. Are they attacking? One council member whispered, his voice trembling. This is not what we asked for. They are human, another replied cautiously. Perhaps their idea of aid is different from ours. The fleet commander, a human named Captain Mason, sent a calm transmission to the station. His voice was measured, almost gentle, yet carried the weight of authority. We received your distress signal. We are here to provide medical aid and to protect it. Our teams are accompanied by combat units to ensure nothing threatens the delivery of help. There is no intention of hostility toward your people. The Virelians exchanged wary glances. To them, humans had always seemed fragile in history records. Their worlds had often dismissed human civilizations as primitive, violent, and poorly organized. And yet here they were, a fully armed armada arriving unbidden. The first human ships entered orbit and began deploying smaller landing crafts. Drones hovered near the surface, scanning the cities, mapping infected zones, and marking quarantine areas. Humans were precise, methodical, and efficient. They moved without panic, without the hesitation that often plagued the Virelians. The council watched in silence, partly fearful, partly impressed. On the ground, the Virelian streets were eerily quiet. Citizens had begun self-isolation, but the plague had already reached too many. The humans landed at the edge of the main city, setting up medical stations as quickly as they deployed defensive turrets. Soldiers moved in disciplined formations, observing their surroundings and ensuring no threat approached. Despite the intimidating appearance, they did not fire upon anyone. Their presence was a paradox, frightening yet protective. Among the humans was Dr. Lena Cross, the lead medical officer. Her eyes scanned the sickened citizens and her mind raced with possible treatments. She had encountered plagues on distant worlds before, but this was unlike anything she had seen. The Virelians were biologically fragile in ways humans were not, but their genetic structure also allowed for rapid cellular recovery if properly treated. She worked alongside Virelian scientists, explaining human techniques and learning alien methods in return. Captain Mason oversaw the operation from a raised command platform. His sharp eyes noticed every movement, every possible threat. When a small group of Virelian radicals attempted to disrupt the human operation, fearing conquest rather than aid, Mason's forces moved swiftly. Not to kill, but to contain. The humans neutralized the saboteurs, confining them with minimal harm. The Virelians watched in stunned silence. Their so-called fragile neighbors acted with a combination of strategic strength and careful restraint. As hours turned into days, the human medical teams made progress. Infected zones were treated with a mixture of alien and human medicine. Hospitals set up by the humans were sterile, efficient, and equipped with advanced life support systems that the Virelians could barely comprehend. Drones delivered medicine to areas too dangerous for human or Virelian teams to enter. Slowly, the tide began to turn. Lives were saved where just days before despair had dominated, yet tension remained. The Virelians still watched the warships overhead. Rumors spread among citizens. Were the humans here to stay permanently? Would their aid eventually lead to conquest? Mason was aware of the suspicion and made careful moves to show respect. He held meetings with council leaders explaining the human approach to aid, protection, strategy, and responsibility. Humans, he said, did not send medicine unguarded. To protect the lives they could save, they had to ensure no harm interrupted the process. One evening, as the twin suns set in violet and orange, a young Virilian scientist named Kira approached Captain Mason. Her hands trembled slightly as she gestured toward the city below. We did not understand your ways, she admitted. We expected doctors, maybe supplies. We did not expect such power, or such discipline. Mason smiled faintly, a shadow of pride in his eyes. We don't separate the two. To save lives, sometimes we must be ready for threats you cannot see. Medicine and protection go hand in hand. We fight so that others can live. Kira nodded slowly, the weight of understanding settling on her shoulders. She had always believed humans to be fragile and reckless, yet now she saw something deeper. A species that combined courage, intelligence, and moral responsibility in ways no other race had. As the nights passed, more Virelians began to notice the humans in a new light. Soldiers patrolled with quiet vigilance. Doctors worked tirelessly and not a single civilian was harmed. Even those who had doubted the humans before could not deny the results. The sick were recovering and the city was safe. Then an unexpected development occurred. Reports arrived that neighboring systems, noticing Virelia's vulnerability, were mobilizing. They assumed the plague had weakened the planet sufficiently to make conquest easy. Alarmed council members brought the news to Mason. They plan to strike while we are here, one whispered, fear evident in his tone. Mason did not flinch. Then we will ensure they do not succeed, he replied. His words were calm, but his mind raced through tactical options. The humans would not allow these aggressors to harm Virelia. The city that had expected only medicine would find itself defended by a fleet trained to protect life at any cost. Virelian citizens began to whisper among themselves. They had feared the humans, but now a new feeling emerged, awe. These beings, so small and fragile in legend, could wield power with precision, courage, and a sense of honor unfamiliar to Virelia. Perhaps they were witnessing not just saviors, but something greater, a species that could stand alone against the galaxy's threats. The first hints of confrontation began to appear on the scanners. Enemy ships were approaching the outer system, testing Virelia's defenses. Humans readied their fleet not with anger, but with careful planning. Mason gathered his commanders. We protect the planet, he said simply. We fight only to save lives, nothing more. Our mission is not conquest, it is preservation. As Part 1 closes, the plague is still ongoing, but human medical teams have turned the tide where alien medicine had struggled. The Virelians look up at the massive warships overhead, fear slowly replaced by respect and cautious admiration. They had expected only aid, but instead they had received the unthinkable. Humans, fully prepared to fight for their survival, ready to combine intellect, courage, and unwavering resolve. In the quiet moments before the first skirmishes begin, Kira whispered to herself, watching the humans set up defensive perimeters around the city. They are nothing like we imagined, and maybe, just maybe, we were wrong to doubt them. The story sets the stage for an epic clash, showing how humanity's courage, strategic thinking, and dedication to life go far beyond what any alien world could anticipate. The stage is ready. Virelia may have expected medical aid, but they are about to witness the full power of human determination. The twin suns rose slowly over Virelia, casting long, pale shadows across the recovering city. The streets, once filled with fear and silence, now hummed with cautious activity. Humans had transformed the alien hospitals into hubs of efficiency, treating the sick and organizing the planet's defense. Virelian citizens watched from their homes and towers, still wary but increasingly impressed by the strange visitors who combined care and power in equal measure. Captain Mason stood on the command platform of his largest ship, watching the distant blips on his scanners. Enemy vessels were approaching, just as the Virelians had feared. The fleets of nearby systems assumed Virelia was weakened, believing a planet crippled by plague would be easy prey. Humans, however, did not operate on assumption alone. They calculated, they observed, and they prepared. Mason's voice echoed through the comm channels, calm yet commanding. All units hold positions. Defensive grids active. Protect the hospitals and the city above all. Remember, we fight to save lives, not for conquest. In the city below, Virelian leaders watched in awe as human soldiers moved with disciplined precision. Drones patrolled the streets, scanning for any threats, while human medics continued to treat the sick, despite the looming danger. The Virelians had expected medicine, maybe a few healers, but the sheer scale of the humans' preparedness was staggering. Dr. Lena Cross walked through one of the large field hospitals, checking patients and coordinating with Varelian doctors. Despite the tension, she smiled as she saw lives being saved. "We've turned the tide here," she said quietly to a Varelian nurse. "But the real test is coming. We must be ready for those who think this planet is easy to take." Meanwhile, Kira, the young Varelian scientist who had first questioned the humans' motives, watched the city from a high observation tower. Her heart raced as human warships in orbit maneuvered into defensive positions. She had doubted humans before, but now she could see their courage, intelligence, and unshakable discipline. They were unlike anything Varelia had ever encountered. The first enemy ships entered Varelian space, scanning for weak points. They fired warning shots, small but precise, testing human response. Mason's fleet reacted instantly. Energy shields flared, and automated turrets unleashed a controlled display of firepower, intercepting the shots without causing unnecessary destruction. Enemy pilots, confident in their advantage, were caught off guard. The humans were prepared for everything they had expected, and for everything they had not. On the ground, citizens watched explosions light up the horizon in controlled bursts. Varelians whispered among themselves, a mix of fear and awe in their voices. "They expected a weak response," one said, "but humans do not fight like any species we know." Small human squads were deployed to the edges of the city. These soldiers, trained on death worlds where survival required adaptability and courage, moved through narrow streets and abandoned districts with stealth and efficiency. They intercepted enemy infiltrators attempting to sabotage hospitals and medical supplies, neutralizing threats without harming civilians. Each move demonstrated tactical brilliance and an unwavering dedication to protection. The Varelians struggled to understand the humans' approach. One council member turned to Mason during a brief communication window. "Why do you fight so carefully? Why do you risk yourselves for us?" Mason's eyes were steady. "Because every life matters. If we cannot protect the lives we are here to save, then our purpose fails. We do not conquer. We preserve. That is who we are." As the battle escalated in orbit, human pilots displayed ingenuity that no Varelian had seen before. They dodged energy blasts, employed unorthodox maneuvers, and targeted enemy supply lines with precision strikes. Enemy commanders, expecting disorganized, reckless humans, found themselves outmatched at every turn. Humans fought not because they wanted victory alone, but because they understood the stakes. The lives of a whole world depended on it. Below, the hospitals continued to operate without interruption. Dr. Cross and her teams worked tirelessly, moving from one critical patient to another. Advanced human medical technology was combined with Varelian methods, creating treatments that began to halt the plague's spread. Citizens who had given up hope watched their loved ones recover, a feeling of relief and gratitude spreading through the city. In one daring move, a squad of human Marines infiltrated an enemy ship that had managed to land a boarding party near the city's outskirts. The Marines moved silently, neutralizing guards and rescuing a captured human medic before the enemy could cause serious harm. Varelian observers could only watch, astonished, as humans risked themselves in perfect coordination, saving lives in moments of extreme danger. Kira, standing on her observation tower, could no longer contain her amazement. "They are not just strong," she whispered to herself, "they are heroic. Every action is calculated to protect life, not for glory or conquest." By the second day of the engagement, enemy forces began to falter. Human strategies had cut off supply lines, forced retreats, and protected the city at every vulnerable point. The Varelian Council, once skeptical and fearful, now watched in stunned silence. These humans had arrived expecting to deliver medicine, but they had also delivered something far greater: proof that courage, intelligence, and honor could overcome even the most formidable threats. As evening fell, Mason gathered his team on the command platform. "We have achieved our objective," he said. "The city is safe, the plague is under control, and the enemy has been repelled. We will maintain support until your people can stand independently. Then we leave, not as conquerors but as allies and friends." The Varelian Council summoned Mason for a formal address. Citizens watched from their homes and towers as their leaders spoke. "We expected only aid," one leader said, voice trembling with emotion. "We did not expect courage, skill, and wisdom in equal measure. Humanity has proven itself worthy of our respect, our trust, and our friendship." Kira stepped forward, approaching Mason personally. Her voice was quiet but firm. I doubted you at first, she admitted. I thought humans were reckless and weak. But I see now. You are unlike any species we have known. You fight for life itself. You do not abandon those in need. You are extraordinary. Mason nodded, a faint smile on his face. We do what we must. We protect life. We survive so others may survive. That is all we ask. That you see the truth of our actions, not the assumptions others make about us. The citizens of Viralia cheered from below. Not in fear, not in desperation, but in admiration and gratitude. Humans had arrived expecting to deliver medicine. They had faced the plague, hostile forces, and skepticism, and had succeeded in every way. By the time the fleet prepared to depart, the Virelians had recovered much of their strength. The plague was no longer a threat. Hospitals operated smoothly, and citizens had renewed hope. Mason addressed the council one final time. We will leave your skies clear, your planet safe. Remember this. Humanity's aid is never half-measured. When we come fully prepared, ready to protect life at any cost. That is who we are. As the human fleet departed, citizens waved from their windows and towers. Kira watched the ships disappear into the stars, a mixture of relief and wonder in her eyes. She had once doubted humanity's capacity for greatness, but now she knew. Humans were not just healers or fighters. They were a force defined by courage, intelligence, and unwavering moral strength. In the weeks that followed, Viralia rebuilt. Their scientists, inspired by human methods, began improving their own medical technology. Citizens remembered the humans not only for the lives saved, but for the example set. Bravery in the face of danger, selflessness in the face of fear, and determination in the face of impossible odds. The story of the humans who arrived to deliver medicine and brought warships instead spread across Viralia and beyond. Neighboring systems began to reconsider the underestimated species they had once dismissed. The humans' actions had created not only allies but a legend, a people who fought not for glory, not for conquest, but to preserve life wherever it could be saved. Even years later, when Virelian children learned about the plague and the warships, they whispered in awe. We expected medicine, they would say, but they gave us courage, hope, and humanity itself. And on distant stars, Captain Mason and his fleet moved on, as they always did. Wherever life was in danger, wherever aid was needed, humans would arrive. They would fight if they must, they would heal if they could, and they would prove time and again that when humanity came, the universe had nothing to fear from the weak. Humanity's strength was not just in weapons or strategy. It was in heart, mind, and unbreakable spirit. Viralia would never forget that lesson. They had expected medicine, but they had received far more, a glimpse of humanity at its finest.